Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? How were those field trips yesterday afternoon? Worked out okay? I just want you to know that Vermont's pretty much always 80 degrees and sunny, so just like for the field trips. I hope you've all been enjoying the conference and meeting lots of people and getting inspired. I'm going to remind everyone that stick around for the closing plenary session because we're going to have an open mic time for you to share what you've learned and especially your key takeaways and your action steps. We're all getting so much out of this conference, and I want to make sure we capture the excitement, the momentum, and the plans so we can really move forward and have impacts in the future. And it is my great pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker, who has had a huge impact on my research and my work. Dr. Carla Barbieri is a professor in sustainable tourism at North Carolina State University, where she founded and leads the Agritourism and Societal Wellbeing Lab, which investigates emerging issues influencing the well-being of rural communities. I've been doing this research for about 20 years now, and one name that regularly and frequently popped up whenever I was doing literature reviews on agritourism, and this is even 20 years ago when there wasn't that much literature on agritourism, was Barbieri. Barbieri et al., Barbieri, Barbieri, Barbieri. But I hadn't actually met this Barbieri person until in 2018, I went to the World Congress on Agritourism in Italy. I was a little intimidated and a little in awe of meeting the preeminent scholar on agritourism. Not only, she's gonna kill me for this, but it's all true. She's just very humble. So a preeminent scholar, not only in the US, but internationally. She is originally from Peru, and she came over to Michigan State University for her PhD. I know we have some Spartans out here. And then she stayed here in the US. However, she continues to work internationally and publishes on agritourism and other important issues all over the world. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Barbieri.
Thank you very much for those nice words, Dr. Chase. I hope I do not disappoint you folks. Now I'm a little bit scary. Well, my apologies for interrupting the good conversation. I really hope that you are having a blast in this conference as I am. I am learning so much. My mind is full of ideas. I don't know how I'm going to keep up on those awesome ideas that I am listening. Before starting, I really want to thank University of Vermont and the Extension Office, especially thanks to Dr. Lisa Chase. Thank you. She and her team has put an incredible work so we can have fun and learn here. So I'm going to talk today about cultivating the future of agritourism, okay? So we're going to start here with a reality check. What we have been doing for the last or past 30, 20, 10 years, and maybe how we should shift a little bit to tackle what is the future or to nurture the future of agritourism. We have advanced a lot on what is the supply of agritourism, correct? We have especially learned all the many benefits that agritourism brings, not only to farmers, notably increasing revenues, profits even, but also providing paid employment to family members and to greater society. We know that thanks to agritourism, we are conserving cultural resources, natural resources, and our agricultural landscape that is so important. With that, our mindset has been trying to maximize the benefits of agritourism. That is the focus that all of us, either we are farmers, practitioners, extension agents, consultants, and so on, all of us were focusing, trying to maximize our current benefits of agritourism. We have also learned a bunch related to the demand of agritourism, correct? Most importantly, we have been trying to understand what are the needs, what are the desires of our visitors so we can cater to them, so we can provide to what they are looking. With that, also a lot of knowledge we have produced, not only from the science, but also from practitioners. With that, we have even learned how to segment all the different types of visitors that can engage in agritourism. And our ultimate purpose has been to define what is the market segment that I, as a farmer, want to bring to my farm. So this is what we have been doing thus far, and I'm here to challenge us to take a step forward. So what we have been working on is the basics of marketing, targeting our customers. From all, we have different markets. Many of farmers, many of us working in agritourism, we focus on families. Some of us, we also focus on adults, either providing workshops, retreats, and so on. And many of us also work on our children, usually through school field trips or maybe summer camps and so on. The question, though, is we know that we at this point are targeting our desired market, but are we nurturing them so they can stay with us for the future? And I want to talk about something that is not new, but I want to talk about the three generations that we are catering to right now. Generation Alpha, those are the kiddos. We don't know too much about them. These are 11 years old or younger. Then we have the Generation Z, mostly now known as the Zoomers. You can guess why. And we have the millennials, correct? We all like to talk about the millennials. And in our mindset, we think millennials as very, very young people. They are not anymore. Bad news, okay? So millennials are those that are between 27 and 41 years old. Can you raise the hand, all the millennials in this room, please? Great. We have some wannabe millennials here. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we should be not only targeting these three generations, because we are already doing so, but why we have to nurture them. The millennials, it's a very interesting generation because they are open to change. That's how they are wired. And this is the generation that we used to complain overall with society because we cannot understand them, the ones that are a little bit older, just a little bit older like me and above, because they can forego very good pay employment if that affects their quality of their life and especially their family time. But this generation is very important. These are the eco-conscious generation. They are the ones that are the most engaged with local foods. And for us, the most important thing, they are raising our future customers. Now I'm going to jump to the very small kiddos, the mini millennials. We are calling like that because they are really, those that we have kids, we know that there's an age that kids want to be like mom and dad, or mom only or dad only, correct? So that is why we call them mini millennials. They are trying to replicate still their parents. But this is a generation that, as you recall, due to COVID-19, they have spent a lot of time at home with their parents, a significant proportion time at home. And if you recall 2 years ago, when we didn't know what to do with our children at home, and we start baking and gardening and going back to fill the hours that now we have to do with our kids, correct? So these children are kind of going back to old customs. They know something about baking. They know something about cooking. So it's another mentality. And then we have the Zoomers. And the Zoomers are very important that we nurture them because these are the activists. These are the ones that go, they're advocates for reducing inequality. They are the ones who will be very vocal on saying, let's protect our local farmers. Let's buy healthy products. They are very interested in cooking and they are foodies. And interesting though, when they choose, because now they are an age that they can choose themselves, they choose healthy foods. That's a priority for them. Let's put all those characteristics all the characteristics that these three groups share. Eco-friendly behavior, interested in local foods, healthy foods. They are foodies, concerned with health, sorry, not with health, with health. Does it ring the bell to you something? Agritourism, correct? And what I want to talk to you, how do we nurture them so we can be with them or have them coming to our farms for ever, hopefully. There are two opportunities that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is we have right now an opportunity to increase the agricultural knowledge of our current customers, so we think in the future. And the second opportunity that I'm going to talk about is what is the power of agritourism in education and to strengthening local foods. So let's start with the beginning. Increasing consumers' agricultural related knowledge. We have all heard that from our parents, grandparents, teachers, and so on. Kids are good learners. My mom used to tell me it's that kids are esponjas. They are a sponge. They absorb everything. I usually thought, yes, good and bad things, but kids that have that ability. Now, that is not the most important thing of this thing that kids are good learners, is that whatever we learn as children, we carry on through our lifetime. So it has a lifelong impact. Now, why do we want to have this long impact on agricultural literate customers? Because actually, if we have consumers that know about agriculture, they will be able to make informed decisions. And that means informed decisions when they purchase, when they advocate, or when they are selecting their leaders. And the second thing, because that effect is going to help us as a society moving to more sustainable food systems. The second opportunity is the impact that agritourism has on education. Folks, this is not new. Since I started, and before that, the farmers offering agritourism and the developers encouraging the offer of agritourism were saying, we do agritourism because we can educate the public. That's what I want. In addition, of course, to get money. I don't think that I am that romantic, but on top of bringing the money, they wanted to educate the public. And then with all our surveys and all our studies with visitors, that's also another thing that was coming. Oh, yes, I take my grandchildren to the farm because I know that they will learn where their food comes from. The question that my team had is it really? Do we actually, as agritourism providers, educating, are we having that impact on our visitors? So we conducted a study that took us 5 years, and actually I was saying in another presentation that we just closed the project yesterday. Okay, so it was a 4-year extended to 5-year because of COVID, and what we did was a study involving 7 farms and 12 schools throughout North Carolina. You can see on the map where North Carolina is located in the US. We work with families that have children between 8 and 13. So that's the generation that we want to nurture. And we did a study with families going to the farms, with kids going with the farms with children, and also those having virtual interaction with farmers. So we call it a study, but actually it was a quasi-experimental design. A what? So this is what it means. It's very cool. We tested the kids. We didn't tell them that it was a quiz or a test, correct? Of course, we told them a survey study, so they were excited to be part of it. We gave them a test just while they were entering the farm, okay? Then we allow them to go and be however hours their family decided to be on the farm, and then we survey them again. And we asked them a bunch of questions on 6 topics, and we were counting how many times they have correct answers on the test. So what we found, that it's awesome, we haven't published it yet, just wait for it, is that we found that after the farm visit, so just within 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours that they were in the farm, they increased their knowledge in all 6 topical questions. That's huge, folks. But what we found is that the increase was statistically significant, so it was larger for the 3 questions related to agriculture in North Carolina, because that is what they were seeing, they were experiencing on the farm. So some examples, we asked the type of crop by region. That was a very tough question, to be honest. Before going to the farm or just entering the farm, 78% had it correct. When they left the farm, 82% had that question correct. We also asked the effect on weather. I don't know how they answered that question. It was a very tough question, even for the survey team, but they did it right. And the also is the change of, or the effect of season in North Carolina. But then we wanted to count also how many questions were correct per child and compare before and after. And we also saw a significantly increase from 4 corrected answers to almost 5 corrected answers. Again, this is huge if we consider that it was just 1, 2, or 3 hours of exposure in the farm. Now, we wanted to see also what type of agritourism experience has greater effect. I have to say that to our disappointment, we didn't find differences. very few differences. It didn't matter whether they were visiting the farm with their parents, with their teachers, or with a farmer through Zoom. Actually, we found a little bit of greater effect on 2 questions when they were having the session with the farmer online. That could be 2 different reasons, but overall, in the great picture, no differences on the type of experience. We also talk about the effect of agritourism on sustainable food choices. We did the same quasi-experimental design at the same time with parents. We took parents aside, so we split them. Okay, we didn't want to test the parents. That will be kind of, we were a little bit afraid of that. But what we asked them, it's about their attitudes toward local foods. The same, when they were entering the farm, and test them the same questions when they were leaving the farm. I have to say that we have, in this particular case, it's only families that went to the farm during the weekends. And we did, I have to recognize that we have a group of people with advantaged conditions. You can see that they have high incomes, high levels of education. And in this particular case, as I told you, it's their overall attitudes toward foods and their willingness to increase their budget for local foods. So this is what we found. You can see regarding attitudes toward local foods, as we ask is, local foods are good for the environment, and we ask them to rate in a scale going from 1, strongly agree, to 5, disagree, to 5, strongly agree. Another thing that for us is important, there is this kind of common misknowledge about that local foods are so difficult to find, correct? People sometimes tell you that. We wanted to test that too, whether are easy to find, whether they knew where to find them, and so on. And this is what we found. We also found that the attitudes of their parents increased from when they were entering the farm to after they were leaving the farm. So they think that local foods are good for the environment. You can see the change of the arrows is telling how it was moving from before to after. They are easy to find. So they don't need to be driving 200 miles to get local or fresh food, correct? And that there is not a constraint in time or in distance travel. Now, a little bit step forward with parents. One thing is the attitudes, another thing is their intentions to buy local foods. And we ask them whether some attributes, for example, looking for the locally owned label. In the case that we tested was got to be North Carolina, because that's the label that we have in our state, and so on. And also we found a significantly increase of the attitudes to purchase local foods. After visiting the farm, they were thinking to go more often to farmers markets, to be engaged more in go to agritourism farms for new pickup activities. Look at the labels. I think that Mario in our opening session was talking about the labels, correct? So look the impact that we are doing. And a little bit more, we wanted to ask, okay, so what about increasing your budget? Now we're talking about the pocket. And when we talk about the pocket, it's a little bit usually more hesitant. And we also found that within 3 scenarios, adults were willing to increase their family budget by 5%, 10%, and even 20% to buy local foods. Folks, I don't know you, but I think this is major, correct? I hope that the dollar sign is coming from some of you farmers offering agritourism. So, how do we capitalize on these opportunities? how do we shift from targeting to nurturing our customers? So this is the right moment to do so. And what we propose, we suggest is that we do need to nurture through purposive education. Before I'm going to start, I have to recognize the farm. It's a farm of Dobson that Megan, she is a teacher. So all her agritourism activities have this education in mind. So I'm going to use some of her examples. I just wanted to recognize her. So how do we do that? We have to be thinking on education with purpose. And the first thing that we have to do is to put our signs that are visually appealing. Sometimes, and you say yes, sometimes we go with farms that they do have their interpretation signs, a piece of paper that they just printed. It's good, but let's be honest, especially with our new generation that they don't like to really read because they are virtually engaged. They do need digital, they do need visual. This is an example. Pumpkin patches. Kids, families love pumpkin patches. It's a blast. It's really fun to go to pick up our own pumpkin. Well, let's take the time to do an education and tell them, well, this is how a pumpkin grows. Look how few reading. Look how much visual. Strategically positioned. As an academic, we used to put our brochures thinking that people will come to look for them. We are used to it. Well, but visitors to our farms, they will not be looking for information. I love this picture that Dr. Brunet took in one of our data collection sites. Look, the kid. The kid is milking the cow, correct? It's very engaged milking. Well, what is happening right there is that in his mind, he is establishing that the milk comes from actually a cow and you have to milk it. It's not open in the refrigerator. Now, look at the adult with him. I don't know if it's the father, the grandfather, but look what he's doing. He's tired of watching the kid, correct? What he's doing? He is reading another attractive sign that is telling all the process of the milk. I am educating the kid, I am educating the parent, and none of those notice that it's education. For God's sake, we do not want to learn. Make sense? Another thing that was pointed out in the early panel, it's the practical knowledge. All of us that we have been lucky to be exposed to agriculture in one way or another one, things come natural to us. We heard the story about the dirt, that kids don't know what dirt is, correct? So we have to be very, very conscious of that. Cotton is very important in North Carolina as well as in many countries, Peru, for example. So we as farmers and extension and people and educators, we get very excited. And this is cotton, how it looks. And the kids look like that. Well, this is what happened. This is what kids are picturing when you're telling cotton. Cotton balls, because that's what they have seen on their homes. And it's not a pleasant image to have. Most likely we have used those cotton to sanitize a scratch, correct? And always it's in the restroom. Now, what about if, as the Dobson do, put a bale of cotton next to it? And they said, that's the plant, that's the bale. And next to it, another sign, I said, and look, from this bale, you can do 200 pairs of blue jeans. And then you can even say, Look around how many people are wearing blue jeans around you. That all comes from here. So we help to make that connection. We cannot take that connection for granted. The another thing that we have to do is to communicate local foods in a very, again, purposive way. Technically, we call that branding, correct? And I am putting here a sample of ways how different states in the US are branding their local foods. This is just a sample. I didn't want to be exhaustive. This is what I got from internet. We can see Vermont there, for example, correct? And my apologies if something is dated here, but that's what I found. Dated? No. Okay. So you can see some examples how states throughout the country are communicating the local foods to their audiences. Now, those are initiatives coming from the state, but there are others initiatives that are coming from NGOs, associations, and so on. So we don't have to wait until our state or community leaders do it. We can partner together to create our own brand. We don't have to go to the state level, province level. We can go smaller. We can see, for example, a couple of the Piedmont region and the Appalachian in the Carolinas. And finally, if we are going to brand, well, let's be very conscious. I want to use the example of North Carolina because I am coming from there. And we have that logo, Go to be North Carolina, that you can see everywhere. And we can easily adapt it when it's got to be North Carolina agriculture, not to be North Carolina seafood, and so on. But important, we have to use those brands consistently and to make them appear visually, easy to find, not lost in the envelope in a small way. Going back to our current generations, how to nurture them. I picked one example. It is important that in those labels, we talk about green, because that's what these new generations are looking for. They are environmental conscious and seekers. Well, don't be afraid to use the word green. I like the Jersey example. I am not affiliated at all with Jersey, but I found this. Look in the logo how they put green as big. So it's easy. You don't have to read the whole thing. Just green pops up. And the second is make sure to highlight the local farmers. Pennsylvania does that in their slogan, support Pennsylvania farmers. And for more than that, at the entrance of the farm in Dobson, we have that huge sign. Reasons why we have to thank our local farmers. However you want to define locals, correct? But that is important. Let's market ourselves in a way that we nurture and we hook this current generation for the future. Before coming to this, to lunch, I was in a session that we're talking about partnerships. And actually, we do need to do better creating strategic partnerships. I was listening about a partnership with Extension and a tribal community. That was awesome. I am just using, because of the topic of this, the educational topic of this presentation, a partnership that we do need to be more conscious, teachers and farmers. This is as part of our project, we developed this partnership. You can see that the guy that is talking is Farmer Ross Vollmer. And next to him is the former director of the Food, Land, and People project. And all those people sitting in the picnic table, and that's not the only picnic table, are elementary school teachers that were going to be part of our project. As I mentioned, the food, land and people was not the only partnerships that we can develop. In doing so, let's think about the whole local food systems, where we have to integrate not only farmers, but educators, everything related to procurement, correct? How do we get it? Cafeterias, schools, and so on. And something that we have been listening a lot in this throughout these days are farm to table initiatives. Those are great that we do need to consider in our strategic partnerships. Advocacy. I am not sure how many public servants we have here in this room, how many vocal people, I know that we have some of those, how many consultants, how many NGOs. Let's begin to advocate for local people, for local foods, and for making agritourism a learning space. There are many schools that they do have mandatory visits to museums. Why don't we have mandatory visits to local farms? Well, here, let's become being advocate, vocal about that we do need to change the curricula. So let's wrap it up. What I wanted to talk today about is that it is time for us to build on two great opportunities that these current social scenarios bring in us. The values of the young generation and the power of agritourism. You know, like be the force, or we do have that power to change it. And that, if we build upon that, we can go from targeting customers that we have been doing a great job to nurturing customers, and they need to be hand to hand. How do we do that? As a wrap up, purposive ag education, emphasizing sustainability, building strategic partnerships, and being advocates for including education, agritourism as part of the educational curriculum. Before I wrap up, I'm just standing here, but all this is thanks to a team that worked together over the years with me, and also for this particular project. Many farmers, I just mentioned 7, but there were many other farmers involved, school teachers, families. Our research team composed of several PIs. You can read them: Dr. Brune, Dr. Stevenson, Dr. Nollenberg, our student Katie Relly, and then 2 extension awesome persons, Liz Driscoll and Renee Strandat, and many volunteers. And with that, I open the session for questions, if you have some. Thank you very much. I think that I was advised that please reach the mic. Thank you. Yes, let me know if there are virtual questions. Thank you.
Yes. A question about the farm visits. Would the size of the farm be included in the study? Like how big, how small?
Thank you very much. I didn't want to bore folks too much with all the research technicalities behind that. It was kind of a headache to select schools, to select farms, both, because we wanted to capture the whole spectrum. So for selecting farms itself, that is your question, we went from the full list of agritourism farms, offering agritourism throughout North Carolina, decreasing based on certain conditions. The main conditions were that all needed to have were similar on size, but most important, they were having similar agritourism experiences, hands-on activities, either if it's milking a cow, if it's petting, you pick up, needed to have some educational visual signs, and needed to have an on-farm store. Thank you.
Hi, Phil Holstead. Given the challenges we face as our country, the US and others, around psychological health as well as physical health, would you consider doing a longitudinal study of showing how the impact of this type of local and also on-farm outdoor experiences could potentially benefit them and people over another 10, 20 years?
Thank you very much. That's my dream research. Hopefully I can do it one day. Doing longitudinal studies are vital, are very complicated to do. I am not sure if I have enough years in academia to do so. I will need to partner with someone very young scholar, because I will need to grab farm growers when they are young, and they keep surveying and assessing them throughout until maybe they become parents or educators, or they have an actual impact on society. So, you know, that may be a 20, 30 year program, and I am so looking for retirement. Thank you.
We could do a retrospective study of people who've had those experiences in the past and set it up, so you can do that now.
Yes, thank you very much. I have thought about that, and it's in my pending list. Thank you. Yes, that's a very good. Going backwards, I want to see, and I have been testing that question, to be honest, in several projects, asking them how often they used to be involved in agritourism when they were growing up. And usually in this, that's one of the things that we haven't yet analyzed the data, but whether that influences the change on educational behavior of the kids or purchasing attitudes of the parents. I just sit tight, results are coming on that. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, so I was just curious, maybe a slightly easier research question. Will you have the opportunity to follow up with some of these parents that have an intention now to buy local foods, to see if after months go by, they actually do so?
That's on my bucket list too. Thank you. I have to say that depending on the type of project, I cannot collect contact information or to contact them again. We are policed very strictly, and it makes sense why. So we do not intrude in people's life, but that will be very good. And actually we were kind of thinking about that, but to be honest, COVID really fell or came us in the middle of data collection. So we have to really work with what was the context, but awesome opportunity. Thank you. Ms. Baggett.
First of all, thanks, Carla. So you mentioned, you know, the power of agritourism, right? So, and maybe this question is for you, just your big global thoughts on this, but I think for all of us in the room, I feel as though agritourism can be a bridge builder to, you know, to really securing a stronger world through farms, through agriculture, through visits, through all of that. So how do we promote this industry through advocacy? How, you know, on a global stage, we're really, I mean, it's great to have all of the colleagues in the room where we don't have to explain what we do every day. You know, it's like agritourism, what is that? You know, and so we have a lot of work to do. And I think we can make a difference, but what are your big high-level thoughts on the whole advocacy piece and how can we move things forward that way?
Thank you very much. Wow, she's asking for my thoughts, but I will be honest. I think that overall, we have much to do, not only in the States, but worldwide, okay? However, we have progressed a lot too. When I started, when most likely we both started, and I was doing my first research projects, and I asked a farmer offering recreational education whether they were doing any agritourism activity. At that time, I was doing my surveys on the phone. They used to hang on me and say, I'm not an agritourism. I do not do agritourism. I'm a farmer. Boom. That was the most common thing. So I have to change my narrative. We have gone from that to at least agritourism is a buzz. And I do think that there's one important piece. We do need to consistently use the word agritourism, follow up with what we mean. And I have heard some desires to make it a global definition, and I think that we cannot forget context. And all countries in the world have their own agricultural, political, environmental context. So I do think that that should be a bottom-up initiative based on each geographic area. But there are certain things that we can talk together. We can plan together. One is if we refer to agritourism, immediately define how we are conceptualizing it. The second thing is that we have grown in international collaboration too. When the first big project was in Bolzano with URAC, and actually we came up with a statement. Dr. Chase, Lisa also talked about that statement, and we have one for this workshop too. We are starting collaborations, and we have to take advantage of what is our current resources. Now we do not need to be physically on the space to talk, and we are seeing that. Lisa is organizing these wonderful virtual gatherings every month, and it was attended by many people from all over the world every single month, correct? We are starting to doing those collaborations. Now, we have to be a little bit also, again, this is my personal opinion, when we talk about it, let's try to think a little bit more beyond ourselves. I need this to advocate for the agritourism of my community, the agritourism, whatever scale you want to use, correct? Those are my thoughts. I think that we do need indeed, I need to do much work on that, but we are trying with that regards, but that consistent language and consistent advocacy efforts. Okay, yes.
If you allow me, please receive the kindly and appreciative hi from Romania.
Thank you.
Because I really appreciate your work and what you presented here. My short intervention is not against or in opposition with what you say. It's just to complement a little bit what you say. Most of your presentation is related to take children to send them or to bring them to the farm to learn how, from where the food they eat every day in the big cities is coming. But the most important thing I discovered here was in the visit yesterday, mobile workshop, in the eyes and voice of some local farmers. They are very sad because they have no very sure continuity of their business because their children are not coming back from New York, Los Angeles, come here to produce. You insist more on consumer to come to see, to understand, to allow, to provide much more budget for buying from farmer. But to buy something from farmer, first of all, must farmer to be existing, to exist. So this should be a part of maybe future research. Also, everybody could be invited to do that. How to keep the children of farmer at the roots of their life. And this could be alternative. Is not an opposition with you.
Thank you very much. I am totally agreed with you. Okay, just very quickly, I just want to follow up that I didn't focus on that, but I do have previous research showing that thanks to agritourism, the next generation are coming to farming. So we have a lost generation. So if we think about grandparents, parents, they are lost, they are gone. Grandchildren, they are coming back if there is agritourism or something value added that they can take over. Yes, so I'm being advised that we ran out of time. So we are going to take only 3 more questions. So sorry, you can get me after that if you have any question. So my apologies.
Thank you. I am Banachueva from Uganda. I have worked at a farm where we have had a lot of clients coming during the COVID season. And then when the COVID season is trying to scale down, we are losing clients. And whether it's an advantage or not, we would like to understand, and especially from your very beautiful research, the classification of the political side, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. How, if we are looking for advocacy for the agritourism farms, we would like to focus on the political side of how they can try to put it into policy, that the agritourism is a very, very important component for domestic and international tourism, and also for the sake of people who are really trying to sustain their life from agriculture in the sub-Saharan African countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is very important. I just want to say that I am not an expert in advocacy, actually, with that purpose. Actually, one of my co-PIs, Dr. Whitney Nollenberg, that's her expertise, and that is how she knows how to get into it. What I do think that overall knowledge is that we do have to make sure that our research reaches our current leaders, to inform them. And that is why folks, extension is so important, because usually extension and both the public, but also the private consultants, those are key stakeholders to make sure that our findings go and reach current leaders. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I found it in the middle, but I loved it. I come from Uganda. I was a speaker at the opening session. I've been advocating for, I'm here to talk about advocacy, partnerships and strategic cooperations, and advancing agritourism, the message of agritourism, I think globally as we are at this international conference. So I'm going back home. I've had all this. I've been a lone voice in Uganda, in East Africa, about agritourism. It's an area which has not been understood, which has not been focused on, but we have been advocating about it. How have I been doing it? Targeting the young generation. I do holiday camps for children, and I take them to the farms to learn, to see, to experience, so that we grow a generation of people, of Ugandans or Africans who are sensitive, who know the value of the land, the value of food, to interest them to go back to the land. So now I'm like, I need to continue this advocacy. Now that I've got all these tools, I've got this information I've picked from here, but I'm a lone voice. And our NGO is a small NGO. So my focus now, what I've been doing is that through our training center, I do training to change the mindset of local government officials, teachers, families, the Ministry of Tourism, to government, to educate them, to link tourism to other sectors of the economy, so that agritourism can benefit from like government, rural development programs, because they leave it out. So now what I'm looking at as what you talked about, strategic partnerships and corporations. How can I be helped? How can I be empowered? Because I'm not doing it for myself, but I'm representing this global family here. When I go home, I'm going to make sure that I appear, I write an article, but I would like to have that article, maybe, I don't know, Dr. Chase, whether they are going to write something about this conference, something which I can take and it goes in the public forum. So that those are small ways of how I can drive this message and continue the advocacy. Friends like people like my colleague here, and as I end, the Ministry of Tourism now, they did a study to see how agritourism can be part of the programs which can bring recovery to tourism in Uganda. And I understand one of the organizations the consultant did was to highlight our work, because we've been doing it already, but on a very small scale. So how can I be helped? How can this conference help me? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to just respond very quickly. What you are experiencing right now is something that we have experienced 20 years ago. When I did my dissertation for my doctorate on agritourism, my advisor told me, and that's it, you will not succeed. Because agritourism is disappearing. I don't know how many of you have had that. Nobody believed in agritourism at that time. So it is a matter of time. It's a matter of having more voices into it. So don't give up, please. Keep trying. Time will come. New people will come to join that voice. The same happened in Peru. 20 years ago, nobody believed on that. Correct. So it's a matter of keep trying and keep going on that regard. I'm so sorry, sir. We only have time for one more question here. We can chat later.
Okay, my name is Melody and I grew up in Harlem in New York City. So I came from a very different way of life. And the majority of people that I know in my family, we didn't have the experience a lot of people had on the farm. And I believe now I am going to advocate. I'm moving to North Carolina and I hope to be able
Welcome.
to work with you. Yes, yes, yes. I'm moving to North Carolina and I want to be able to help. We purchased 7 acres and we need help getting it up and going so we could help children to understand and have those experiences. So for me, what agritourism is, it's an experience. And I believe that when you have an experience, you should use your 5 senses in every way you can so you can remember the experience. And I don't want to keep going, but thank you, Melody.
Thank you very much. We are honored. Thanks.
Time though. Oh, okay. Sorry for running over a bit. We do have some time though, because the next session doesn't start until 1. So we'll wrap up soon and give you time.
So one quick virtual question. How can we motivate parents to take kids to agritourism farms?
Wow, that was a tough question. The last. Yeah, I know. So I do think that it's all blends together. I think that what is happening in certain parts of the US, for example, it is the social movement related to local foods. So because these millennials are growing up and their kids are very advocate, they are helping to develop this local food social movement. And I think that everything is intertwined. By, for example, encouraging schools to take their kids to farm. Kids go home later and they are asking their parents. And that is something that it's key. Our, not necessarily my research, but overall research shows how sometimes we target kids for purchasing some products. Think about cereal, think about Disney. They are targeting children, even though they do not have the economic power. Why? put your hats of parents or grandparents when your kid asks, I want that cereal, I want that cereal, I want that cereal. What do? Okay, I'll buy that cereal, correct? So that it will be one strategy, I think, to get parents. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you so much, Carla. I know we have tons of questions here in the room and also online. We encourage you to put your questions into the Whova app. Leslie, this is a question for you. I know there were a lot of questions in chat that we didn't get to. Will those show up in the Whova app in a way that Carla can access them? And if not, can you and your team make sure that they do? Okay, so it sounds like if you put a virtual question into chat and Carla didn't get to it, it will show up in the Whova app. And we encourage everyone else here. Well, you folks here in person can just catch Carla and grab her and ask her your questions. Maybe she's pretty busy, but otherwise put your questions in Whova and Carla can take a look at them later. We are in just a moment, we're going to move off to our next round of concurrent sessions, but I want to encourage everyone to come back here afterwards because we're going to have a phenomenal closing plenary session that's going to be open to everyone. And we are saving our donations of Lake Champlain chocolate, Cabot cheese, and freshly picked apples from today for that final session. Plus, we're going to be hearing from a lot of you as well as a lot of other leaders in agritourism. If you do have to leave early, please take a moment to fill out the survey. There's a paper version or you can access it through the QR code because we really want to make sure to hear from everyone and keep this conversation going and the network growing. So thank you all so much.